There's this really good episode of Cowboy Bebop, where Spike and Jet basically spend the whole time looking for a Betamax player. It doesn't have any high-octane action sequences or interesting side characters, but it's always been one of my personal favourites of the series. The whole episode is really just a pointless little side quest. The tape player the crew ends up finding doesn't even play their tape, and instead a working one ends up being delivered to them a few hours later. There is a big emotional payoff at the end of the episode, but even that leaves Faye with more questions than answers. I never really overthought this episode until recently, when I started watching Frieren. I know I'm literally like a year late, but I had a similar experience with episode 2. In this episode, Frieren searches for flowers to decorate a statue of an old friend. It's the type of thing that you'd do in a video game and completely forget about an hour later, but in this show it really resonated with me and stood out for a couple of reasons, and this kinda gave me clarity on why I like the Bebop episode so much. It helps that both of these shows are relatively episodic. The majority of Bebop and the first half of Frieren are just about the characters drifting around and dealing with the random things they get involved in, which makes these side quest type episodes work really well, instead of just feeling like unnecessary filler. Characters. The characterization is a huge part of why this style of storytelling works. The main characters of both shows are deep, and by deep, I don't just mean that they say something and you're like, wow, that's deep. I mean they're complex characters with lots of history and interesting perspectives on life. In Bebop, Spike, Jet and Faye are all kinda past their prime, and have had numerous run-ins with death. This has given them pretty carefree attitudes, so they're willing to go out of their way to look for a tape player, just because it gives them something to do. And with Frieren, her journey to look for a blue moonweed flower takes 6 months. Yes, 6 months, but she's willing to spend that time because she thinks that finding it will give her a better understanding of the friend that she didn't know enough about many years before. And also because her insanely long lifespan has skewed her understanding of how important time is, something she starts to understand better as the series goes on. Memories. To me, the big idea that links both of these shows is memories. Like I said with the Bebop characters, they've all lived through their prime by the time the show begins, especially Spike, who talks about how he's already died once before. Some of the characters are stuck living in their memories, while some are desperately trying to remember, and that's why this episode hits so hard at the end. Faye has found the memories that she'd been chasing, but they don't make any sense to her. To the point where she hardly even recognises the person on the tape as herself. Frieren kinda does the opposite of this, where she has memories that she doesn't seem to associate any emotions with, but then she starts to understand their importance by reliving them. She initially seemed confused when Himmel put a flower crown on her head, but all these years later it clearly means something to her as she does the same thing to his statue. That pretty much sums up my understanding of Frieren as a show really. I haven't finished it yet, but to me it's about the importance of memories, not just to you, but also to the people you share them with. The old lady remembers being saved by Himmel as a kid, so she tries to keep his statue in good condition, even when the rest of the village has forgotten him. And Frieren remembers the person Himmel was, and the flowers that meant a lot to him, so she decorates the statue with them as it's more personal and meaningful. And I guess the takeaway from all of this is that side quests don't always work in anime, or for that matter TV shows or even video games, but if they're imbued with care and characterization and history, they can be just as memorable as the main quests.